Cristiano Ronaldo's departure from Real Madrid was not a single decision made in a single moment. It was the slow, invisible collapse of a relationship that once defined an era of football. Because when Ronaldo arrived at the Santiago Bernabéu in 2009 as the world's most expensive player, he did not just join a club, he became a project, a symbol, and eventually the very identity of Real Madrid's modern dominance, scoring goal after goal, breaking record after record, winning 4 Champions Leagues, becoming the club's all-time top scorer, and turning nights at the Bernabéu into rituals of inevitability, where fans no longer asked whether Ronaldo would score, but how many. Yet beneath the trophies, beneath the Ballon d'Ors, beneath the chants of Cristiano, something quietly began to rot, because Real Madrid is a club that loves legends only as long as they are useful, and history had already shown this with Di Stefano, with Raúl, with Casillas, and Ronaldo, despite believing he was different, was slowly learning the same brutal lesson, that at Real Madrid no player is bigger than the institution, not even one who delivered more goals than games. And the first crack appeared not on the pitch, but in silence, in the absence of appreciation, because Ronaldo, more than money, more than contracts, craved recognition, public love, the feeling of being valued not just as an asset but as a king. And while Lionel Messi was publicly protected, adored, and defended by Barcelona at every turn, Ronaldo felt that Real Madrid treated him like an employee rather than a legend, renewing contracts quietly, celebrating trophies collectively, and rarely putting him above the badge in public discourse. And this psychological gap widened season by season, especially as Ronaldo crossed 30, an age where footballers traditionally decline, but Ronaldo refused to accept biology, instead reinventing himself, training harder, scoring in different ways, becoming more ruthless, more decisive, especially in the Champions League, where he single-handedly dragged Real Madrid through knockout rounds, scoring hat-tricks against Wolfsburg, Bayern, Atletico, Juventus, and again delivering when the club needed him most. Yet even as he carried them, the narrative around him subtly changed, with Spanish media increasingly linking his future away, questioning his salary, his age, his ego, and Florentino Pérez, the architect of Galacticos, began to look ahead rather than bow to the past, because Pérez has always believed that Real Madrid must renew itself relentlessly, replacing stars before they decline, not after. And while Ronaldo saw himself as irreplaceable, Pérez saw him as another cycle approaching its end, and the tension exploded publicly after the 2017 Ballon d'Or ceremony, where Ronaldo, despite winning his 5th Ballon d'Or, felt that the club's celebration was cold, insufficient, lacking the grandeur he believed his achievements deserved. And from that moment, Ronaldo began to feel emotionally detached, speaking cryptically in interviews, hinting at unhappiness, saying things like, "Maybe one day I'll leave," statements that were not accidental but signals, warnings, pleas for recognition. Yet Real Madrid remained unmoved, because internally the club was already planning life after Cristiano, exploring Neymar, then Mbappe, younger, marketable superstars who fit Pérez's vision of the future. And the final breaking point came after the 2018 Champions League final in Kiev, when Real Madrid defeated Liverpool to win their 3rd consecutive Champions League, an historic achievement. And instead of celebrating, Ronaldo stood in front of cameras and said words that stunned the football world, thanking the fans for what they gave me, speaking in the past tense, turning a night of glory into a farewell. And those words were not spontaneous, they were the culmination of months of frustration, because during contract negotiations, Ronaldo had demanded parity with Messi's salary and status, not out of greed but pride, believing his achievements at Real Madrid equaled or surpassed Messi's at Barcelona. Yet Pérez refused, offering extensions but not reverence, seeing Ronaldo as a depreciating asset rather than a living legend. And this refusal cut deeper than any tactical decision, because Ronaldo interpreted it as betrayal, as proof that no matter how much he gave, the club would never love him the way he wanted to be loved. And when Juventus came calling, offering not just a lucrative contract but unconditional admiration, a new kingdom where he would be the unquestioned emperor, the decision became inevitable. Because Juventus did not sell Ronaldo a football project, they sold him validations, statues, marketing campaigns, an entire nation ready to revolve around him. And for a man driven by legacy, by how history would remember him, this mattered more than another Champions League medal. And so in July 2018, Cristiano Ronaldo left Real Madrid, not in a dramatic war, not with insults, but with a quiet finality that felt colder than conflict, because Real Madrid did not fight to keep him, did not beg, did not match Juventus's offer, and that silence spoke louder than words, confirming everything Ronaldo feared, that to Real Madrid, he was replaceable. And in the years that followed, the truth became clearer, because Real Madrid struggled to replace his goals, cycling through Hazard, Jovic, Bale's decline, tactical reshuffles, while Ronaldo continued scoring, continued breaking records, continuing proving that age was irrelevant to his ambition. And though Real Madrid would eventually rebuild, finding a new core, new stars, winning again without him, proving the institution's eternal truth that no individual is indispensable, yet even in victory, something was missing, the aura, the fear factor, the guarantee that when the stakes rose highest, Cristiano Ronaldo would appear. And for Ronaldo himself, each move after Madrid felt like a challenge rather than a homecoming, a series of conquests rather than a kingdom, because Juventus was an experiment, Manchester United a nostalgic return that collapsed under modern pressures, and Saudi Arabia a strategic legacy move rather than a sporting peak. And slowly, the realization emerged that Real Madrid was the perfect stage for Ronaldo's prime, the ideal ecosystem for his mentality, his hunger for greatness, his obsession with greatness, and while neither side openly admitted regret, their actions spoke volumes, with Madrid fans continuing to chant his name years after his departure, clips of his goals circulating endlessly, and comparisons haunting every new signing, while Ronaldo himself repeatedly referenced Real Madrid with affection, calling it his happiest footballing chapter, praising the club, the stadium, the nights, because time softens pride and distance clarifies truth. And the truth is that the breakup between Ronaldo and Real Madrid was not a mistake, but it was unfinished, because neither side achieved something greater without the other than they did together. And that realization lingers like a ghost over modern football, reminding fans that sometimes the greatest partnerships end not because they fail, but because ego, timing, and silence prevent reconciliation. And so when history looks back at Cristiano Ronaldo's departure from Real Madrid, it will not ask who was right or wrong, but what could have been. How many more Champions League nights, how many more records, how many more moments of inevitability were lost to pride? And in that unanswered question lies the quiet regret shared by both a player who refused to fade quietly and a club that refused to bow to any individual, a clash of giants that reshaped modern football forever. As time stretches the distance between Cristiano Ronaldo and Real Madrid, the story finally matures beyond anger, pride, and justification, evolving into something rarer in modern football: perspective. Because legacy is not decided in press conferences or contract negotiations, but in memory, in how eras are remembered once the noise fades. And when history strips the drama away, what remains is not the argument over who needed whom more, but the realization that both Cristiano Ronaldo and Real Madrid were at their absolute peak when they were aligned, moving in the same direction, fueled by the same hunger. And the solution to their story does not lie in rewriting the past, but in understanding it. Because football is littered with broken dynasties that failed not because of decline, but because communication collapsed under ego and timing. And this is where the true lesson begins. Because Ronaldo did not leave Real Madrid because he was finished, and Real Madrid did not let him go because they underestimated his greatness. They separated because neither side was willing to fully acknowledge the other's fear, with Ronaldo fearing disrespect and erasure, and the club fearing stagnation and dependency. And instead of confronting these fears openly, both retreated into silence, allowing resentment to grow in the absence of honesty. And this is the first solution modern football must learn, that legends require transparency, not just contracts, because money cannot replace validation, and strategy cannot replace gratitude. And had Real Madrid publicly embraced Ronaldo's status not as an asset but as a living symbol, and had Ronaldo accepted that institutions must plan beyond individuals, the ending could have been softer, more controlled, more dignified. But football rarely rewards emotional intelligence, and so the separation happened, leaving behind an unfinished emotional arc that fans still debate. Yet even in separation, the legacy solidified, because Ronaldo's Real Madrid years remain the gold standard of individual dominance within a collective system, a period where personal obsession fused perfectly with institutional ambition. And this is where the resolution becomes clear, because the solution is not reconciliation in the literal sense, not a return, not a farewell match, not ceremonial gestures, but narrative ownership, the acknowledgement from both sides that together they created something irreplaceable, and that neither diminished without the other, but neither exceeded that peak again either. And this understanding reframes the departure not as betrayal or arrogance, but as a collision of greatness that burned too intensely to last forever. Because dynasties do not end quietly, they collapse under their own weight, and the solution for future generations lies in managing this inevitability with grace, because football must evolve beyond treating legends as expendable once they age, and players must evolve beyond believing loyalty guarantees immortality, as Real Madrid's history proves otherwise, and Ronaldo's career reinforces it. And yet, despite everything, the ending is not tragic, because legacy does not require permanence, it requires impact, and Ronaldo's impact at Real Madrid reshaped expectations forever, turning the Champions League from a dream into an obligation, redefining professionalism, discipline, and self-belief, and showing that obsession, when aligned with structure, can produce historic dominance. And for Real Madrid, Ronaldo reinforced their identity as the ultimate stage for greatness, a club that attracts the ambitious, empowers the relentless, and survives every departure, because its story is larger than any individual chapter. And this dual truth is the real resolution, that Ronaldo did not fail Real Madrid by leaving, and Real Madrid did not fail Ronaldo by letting him go. They simply reached the natural end of a cycle that could not be sustained without compromise. And the solution moving forward for football institutions is to recognize when cycles end without framing them as wars, because dignity in departure preserves legacy more than forced continuity. And for players, the solution is understanding that respect is earned daily but not owed eternally, and that even the greatest careers must end chapters voluntarily to avoid becoming cautionary tales. And Ronaldo, by leaving when he did, avoided the fate of being slowly phased out, preserving the image of dominance rather than decline, while Real Madrid, by standing firm, preserved their institutional authority, even at the cost of short-term struggle. And in this sense, both sides succeeded in their own way, though at the cost of something irreplaceable together. And this is why the final judgment of history will not be binary, not hero versus villain, but balance, because greatness rarely exists without friction, and the most iconic partnerships in football history, Cruyff and Ajax, Maradona and Naples, Messi and Barcelona, end not with perfection but with fracture, because perfection is unsustainable, and the solution is not preventing fractures, but accepting them as part of greatness. And as Ronaldo's career enters its final phase and Real Madrid's new generation rises, the emotional wounds soften into nostalgia, into highlights replayed endlessly, into chants echoing long after the player has left the pitch. And in that space, forgiveness quietly replaces debate, because fans do not remember salary disputes, they remember goals, nights, moments, and inevitability. And Ronaldo's Real Madrid chapter remains unmatched in that regard, standing as a benchmark for what happens when ambition, talent, and obsession converge under the brightest lights. And so the final solution to the question of why Cristiano Ronaldo left Real Madrid is not found in blame, but in acceptance. Acceptance that even the greatest stories must end, acceptance that pride can coexist with respect, and acceptance that legacy is not defined by how long you stay, but by how impossible you were to replace once you left. And in that measure, Ronaldo did not just leave Real Madrid, he permanently altered it, just as Real Madrid permanently shaped him, and that mutual transformation is the true ending, not regret, not bitterness, but the quiet acknowledgement that football witnessed a partnership so powerful that its absence still feels loud, and that is not failure, that is immortality.